This is got the religious job. Yeah, no problem.
Councillors pledge, Councillor Braithwaite. Third, councillors and officers and guests. Just as a procedural matter tonight, we will be live streaming. We're keen to engage with our community, and the streams will be a formal measures to make the law councillors more accessible. The stream will be available to view on Ararat Active's Facebook page from 6 o'clock on the council's website. Councillor Hull.
Traditional acknowledgement. We acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today and pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging.
Almighty God, we humbly ask you to help us as elected councillors of the Ararat Rural City Council, guide our deliberations, prosper what is your will for us, to your honour and glory, and for the welfare and benefit of the people whom we serve in the Ararat Rural City.
The Councillors Pledge. We will undertake the duties of the Office of Councillor in the best interests of the people of the Municipal District of the Ararat Rural City Council, and faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities, discretions vested in us under the Local Government Act 1989 and any other act to the best of our skill and judgment.
Thank you, councillors. 1.3, apologies, on which we have none.
We have no apologies from councillors. We do have an apology from Mr. Cole, Corporate Services Director.
Does someone need that apology to be accepted, vote? Councillor Keckman and Councillor Armstrong. All those in favour? That's carried. Confirmation of minutes. The minutes of the council meeting held on the 7th of July 2018 and the special council meeting held on the 7th of August 2018 be confirmed. Please, councillors. Councillor Titch and Councillor. Any discussion, councillors? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Declaration or disclosure of interest 1.5. Is there any declarations that we...
None have been reported to me.
None reported. 1.6. Addition of urgent business.
There's no urgent business at all.
Okay, no urgent business. Public participation section 2. Request to address council, which I believe we have 2.
Two requests. First is Mr. Luke Course from the Regional Billboard Company, who's addressing state planning applications on the agenda tonight.
Luke, would you like to come forward?
Sure. Hi everyone, I'm Luke. Thanks for taking the time to listen to what I have to say. So I just wanted to take a couple of minutes to introduce myself and our business. We're a family-owned company. My brother and I own the company, and the reason we actually started our billboard company was we're both very proud Victorians, and there's a really big gap in the market in regional outdoor advertising in Victoria because local businesses just aren't getting the opportunity to advertise on roadside billboards. So we did a lot of research before we started the company, and last year we estimated there was 10 million spent in Queensland by regional businesses to advertise, by small local businesses to advertise on billboards. In New South Wales that was about 6 million. And last year in Victoria it was about 100,000. And the main reason for that is all the billboards that you see along here are owned by big national companies and not small independents. So for them, spending the time to sell advertising space on a one-off basis to small local businesses just doesn't really move the needle a whole lot. So yeah, we've just seen really a big gap in the market for local businesses, so we're out there developing a lot of billboards and selling the advertising space ourselves to local businesses. So that was what our planning application was about. And yeah, most of our competitors, about 90% of their revenue comes from big national advertisers, including the billboards you've got at the moment, and we target a bare minimum of 50-50 for our business, 50% from local advertisers and 50% from nationals. And yeah, so most of the advertising messages we'd be displaying on the billboard would be by businesses in Ararat and it is on High Street, the proposed site, so it would be a lot of businesses encouraging motorists to get off the highway and stop in Ararat and put money into the economy and local businesses. And yeah, we really pride ourselves in working with councils on these applications. A lot of our competitors that I think you guys have seen firsthand put in an application. If it's not approved, they just go to VCAT and try and get it approved as is, as I believe happened here. We really pride ourselves in working with councils, making amendments to the application if that's what needs to happen to make sure all parties benefit. And yeah, so we've never had to go to VCAT so far. We had one approved in Bendigo last week. That Bendigo has not approved a billboard in 10 years as far as we're aware. They'd rejected 4 in the past couple of months, and ours got approved because we actually worked with council, we reduced the size, pushed it back off the road. So we really do want to work with the local community and councils on these billboards. So I saw in the report in the agenda, it was recommended that the application be rejected, and there was 3 main points. So I just want to quickly address those points. The first one was that the proposal was inconsistent with the surrounding streetscape and would produce a poor urban design outcome, contrary to clauses 15.01 and 52.08 of the Ararat planning scheme. And just on that point, during the planning process, that concern was raised. So we did agree to reduce the height of the sign by 1 metre and also increase the setback from the High Street boundary by 2.3 metres. And the overall advertising area was decreased by 28%. Additionally, I would also like to note that in the 2016 VCAT case between one of our competitors and your council, the VCAT case member did establish that sign was appropriate to the character of the High Street area, which was described as robust commercial highway transport corridor and is not a scenic route or a tourist road. The second point that was raised in the report by your planning department was that the proposal would add clutter and disorder to the area, contrary to clauses 2104.9 and 2104.10. Just our notes on that point were that pretty much the same issues were raised in that VCAT case, as noted in the council report on the previous application by our competitor. And during that VCAT case, Member Watson established that these highly restrictive clauses in the clauses that you stated were inappropriate to apply. And there's also quite a few other VCAT cases that establish this principle, as the statewide planning scheme in 5205 governs major promotion signs rather than local design policies.
Can I just say that we've actually got a restriction of 3 minutes to speak, so...
Yeah, sure, I'm just about done.
Okay,
but we did note that there was a concern raised about illuminating the sign because of some local residential properties nearby the site, and we would be happy to have a condition of the permit that it could not be illuminated as a response to that point. And then the third point was that the proposal would harm the sensitive vista of the mountain, contrary to clauses 52.085 and 2104.9. We agree that this is a really important issue. We sent through mock-ups which, in our opinion, show that it impacts that view, if at all, a lot less than the other sign that was approved through VCAT, and I think our mock-ups compared to that existing sign certainly show that. So just quickly, in conclusion, yeah, I really do hope you can see that we've shown some flexibility in reducing the height, the advertising area and the setback from High Street, and we really would like to avoid having to go to VCAT to get a permit on this site. We really do want to work with you to avoid everyone having to waste time and money, and hoping that we can help grow the local economy by the site there and working with local businesses. So thanks a lot for taking the time.
Thank you for that. We'll do the decision later.
Yes, that report will be dealt with in section 3.3 on the...
Are we allowed to ask any questions, Madam Mayor?
I'm not sure that it's within our protocol, does it?
Thought it did, but it's fine. That's fine.
No. Is it
No, that's fine.
we can do one, councillor Beals, if you wish, if you want to.
No, it's either we can ask questions or we can't ask questions, and the decision.
Well, I'll give you the.
No, it's
You
fine.
can. I've just had it cleared that you can ask questions, councillor Beals, if you wish to.
I've only got two.
Sure.
You say the road is not a tourist route, but it is the main road that goes, from every destination in the area. So how did you come by the definition of tourist route?
So that was actually, I took that straight from the VCAT case for the other sign, so in that case.
Fine.
And I think typically, obviously tourists, just about every road in Victoria has some tourists on. I think they normally look at major tourist roads as being, the Great Ocean Road or Great Alpine Road, that kind of stuff.
That'll be fine.
Yep.
And there was another one, councillor Beals, you wish to?
Well, I'll ask if I've got two. You talk about your percentage of local advertising being 50-50. You're a businessman.
Yeah.
If you don't get the amount of local advertising, it won't be 50-50, will it?
We'd be happy for a condition on the permit to be that 50% of the advertising space has to be local businesses.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We just had it clarified. We've actually got 2 minutes will be allocated for councillors to ask questions of the presenter if required. So we're operating within the law. And our second presenter is Terry Brown. And Terry would like to talk about the disability access to Alexandra Gardens and facilities.
Yeah. Hi, Council. I've just moved to Ararat December last year. It's like as if God brings me here because I used to do theatre, so I used to perform on the stage just up the road at the festivals back years ago, and I've stopped doing performing, but a bit of my heart's desire wants to get back into it. So ironically I ended up in Ararat, living a few metres from it. Maybe some destiny there. Anyway, what I'm here for is my wife told me where she's walking the dogs, there's a lovely cafe down at the Alexandra Gardens. And so we started visiting there, and it's got fantastic food compared to other cafes around the area and any cafes that I know of. You can get a nice eggs benedict, you can get huge hamburgers and things like that. So it's not just a kiosk. Anyway, so I enjoyed going there, and to my dismay, on an alternative Saturday, couldn't get in to the gates, and so I started inquiring as to why that was the case. Now, unfortunately, I suffer angina, I've got lymphedema, I've been in some road accidents where my body's pretty damaged, my neck, my spine, my legs. I have shortness of breath at times when I walk, so having that access to the car park at the end where the toilets are is great for me. But I'm not just here speaking for myself, I'm speaking for some elderly people that have had the same difficulty, whether they be on walking frames, walking sticks. And I've had words to them, and they're saying to me that they can't come to that cafe on those Saturdays where the gates are locked. Now, I've had a run-in with David Jennings because he was wondering why I was trying to get in the gate. And so he went around like a Gestapo and checked all the chains and made sure they were all in place. I actually filmed him from a distance doing that. So here what I say is actual factual evidence. Over the weeks I've filmed and recorded every event. In fact, an ambulance not being able to get through to those gates and having to go around and attend a person who had a seizure in the park. Recently, a lady fell and nearly hit her head on the curvature of the park down the other end. So we had to go and rescue her. Now, I'm speaking from a person who has rescued, unfortunately, teenagers out of car accidents. I used to be a taxi driver as well. In a matter of minutes that I saved their lives. I couldn't save the driver. A year later...
Can I just ask you if you actually stay on the subject?
Yeah, we'll stay with the subject, but I'm just giving you a bit of background that I know that how many minutes between life and death. Now, the thing is, these buildings that are built these days, especially the new ones, from a building point of view, in my experience there, done my set for, they're making it 5 minutes longer to burn, whether it be the cladding, the plaster or whatever. So emergency vehicles can get quick or access to these buildings without the least damage to both the people that are in them and both the buildings themselves. Now, I got told recently that the fire brigade is okay with getting out the vehicle and using bolt cutters to open locks. Well, that's going to take up that 5 minutes. So I don't think that's a practical solution. Secondly, I've approached and written to the Minister for Accessibility to Disability Services, being public toilets and things, and they've found that 80% in Australia, in most cases, buildings are built in the wrong area. Now, if those gates are going to be locked, I'm going to ask why don't you build those buildings down the other end of the park, because that's not close accessibility. Now, I know it's a game, it's only a football game. I understand that the other club's okay with having those gates open, but it's only the Rats football team that are putting up a fight and difficulty because they don't want that cafe being a threat to their business, which is crap, in my belief. Unfair. It's had an impact on that business. My wife now works there part-time, and when the Rats were playing on last Saturday, she only sold 3 cups of coffee all day. Now, you've invited people to put on a lease or take on a lease in that building, and I can't see why you're working against them in succeeding. You're only going to end up that business is going to close. And I'm not just speaking from her, but I'm also speaking that I'd like to see that park has a lot more potential. It's certainly not like Wendouree. You can't have a rowing regatta, but you certainly could have carnivals, festivals. You can put lights in the trees, you can put lights in across the bridge and make it a beautiful place at night. You could have dusk type activities. You could have open theatre in the park. It can be promoted. It's got so much more potential. The other thing I have heard on the radio on the way to work is that the government plans to open up 4 mines between Ararat and Neil. It also plans to bring in 20,000 people towards this area. And I'm saying that by beautifying the streets, by beautifying the park and everything, and we need to move with the times and get ready for that. We need to embrace it, not disgrace it.
Thank you very much.
I've got a question, Mr. Brown.
Councillor Hill.
You've admitted you have a conflict of interest in relation that your wife works there.
She's only just started working there, but I started this research, and I can prove the dates.
I can only ask questions. I can't give
okay.
an opinion, so I'm just asking.
I started this problem and research and inquiries to council. I met with the councillor months and months and months ago. My wife only just started working there, so the issue was before my wife started working there. I am not just fighting for her, I'm fighting for the right for that cafe to stay open as well, because I enjoy going there, and I think I made that clear at the start. Okay, so it's not a conflict of interest. I believe, however, there may be a conflict of interest with the council because some people have got their grandchildren playing for the Rats, or they're on the committee as well for the football team.
I haven't got any grandchildren.
I have.
You have grandchildren, I don't see as a conflict because I don't have any.
Well, if they're on the committee for the football team, there may be a conflict of interest. I'm not saying you particularly, I've just heard.
No.
So,
Is there any other councillors got any other questions?
Yes.
Councillor Penn?
Can I just ask you to clarify about the ambulance? You said an ambulance went to come in and they wouldn't let an ambulance in?
no, they had to unfortunately go around. What they did was come to the fence, realised that it was locked, and they had to go around the street to get to that person. And it's happened a few times. I filmed it. So, and I'm not here basically about the cafe, by the way. I'm basically about accessibility for disabled people. So let's not confuse the issues. Yeah.
Any further questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Continuing on, councillors. 2.2, deputations, presentations.
No deputations that I'm aware of.
3.1, reports requiring councillors. 3.1, annual review of neighbourhood safer places. Council, service or recommendation. Councillor Hall. Councillor Bill.
No
Councillor
discussion.
Hall, no discussion.
Yeah, I want to say something because there seems to be a lot of confusion in the community over the location of neighbourhood safer places and that they are refuges. It's clearly, the documentation shows that it's a CFA assessment which council has to ratify. They're not refuges, they're the place of last resort if you get caught out. There's people have to realise that, and the more we mention it, I think the
That's correct, councillor. They are purely place of last resort when every other plan that you have had or have has failed. So you may not die, but you may be burnt.
Councillor George.
Yes, have those safe places changed? I thought in Lake Wallach it's now on the information centre. Was it near the golf course before? Or?
Correct, so it's now moved to the forecourt of the information centre, so where there's a lot of bitumen and concrete,
Yeah.
and that's where it is.
Any further discussion, councillors? If not, I put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 3.2. Domestic animal management plan.
Thank you.
Mr. Wood.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is the annual review of the domestic animal management plan and evaluation of the effectiveness of that particular plan to promote responsible ownership of pets. This is a legislative requirement that every year it's evaluated before council, and the plan is reviewed and changed if necessary, and then the secretary is given a copy. Secretary of Health is given a copy. This is for formal adoption. The statistics there are pretty clear. We only euthanized 2 dogs that actually needed to be euthanized because they were aggressive towards humans or animals. Our adoption program has been quite successful, and the council should be applauded for the position that it took in offering the subsidised adoptions and directly from the pound. And we are continuing to address the feral cat problem in the community, which is the number one being identified recently by the I think it's a feral cat commissioner in Canberra, where it's the number one pest in Australia. So we continue to offer those traps free of charge to trap feral cats. Any feral cats are euthanized, any domestic cats that are trapped, we try and find the owner, or otherwise they are given to adoption agencies or adopted directly from the pound as per our animal adoption scheme. So you can see there last year we had 43 cats adopted directly from the pound, and 42 were sent to rescue organisations for a second chance of life. Similarly with the dogs, 31 dogs were adopted directly from the pound, 18 went to rescue organisations, so had 147 impounded throughout the course of the year. So the various strategies I believe are working. That's also to increase our registration rates, so we offer an amnesty every year, and we had microchipping days every one day this year where we went to Ararat, Moyston and Pomona.
Councillors?
So moved.
Moved Councillor Hull and seconded Councillor Braithwaite. Can I just also congratulate you on the work that's been done with the domestic animal management plan? I can remember sitting here some years ago when we could see actually 40 dogs put down, numerous cats, and I think that the work that's actually been done has been excellent. And even the fact of, what was it? The most successful post related to a healthy in Elmhurst that reached 20,000.
Yes, so we do get a lot of
675 hits. It's just amazing. So well done. Any Councillor Peckman?
Sorry, I'd just like to commend Mr. Wood about his recommendation about the subsidising for the dogs and cats. I think it was just terrific, and very happy that we've done it.
Madam Mayor, I'd also like to commend the adoption people who help with the animals in their house, and I think they do a really good job.
I'll put the motion, councillors. All those in favour? Against? Carried. 3.3, an application for a planning permit.
By Mr. Hastings.
Yes. Mr. Hastings?
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors. I'll take you through the report just generally and to the recommendations. It's a plan permit application is 2727. I think we've heard earlier from Regional Billboard Company about the major promotional signage that is proposed at 139 214 High Street, Ararat. So it's to the east of Ararat on High Street, on what is now known as the sort of bypass associated with the Western Highway section of the road. There's a site plan on page 2 of the report that identifies the location and also the proposed signage, which is located close to the street frontage. Approximately 5.1 metres in height and approximately 13 or 14 metres in width of the total area on one side of 43 square metres. We assess applications like this against the Ararat planning scheme. In the report there's a number of strategies around urban design and some strong policy around visual amenity and the local policy around guidance for how Ararat should treat these sorts of applications. So under visual amenity, Council acknowledges that proliferation of signage can significantly reduce the visual amenity of an area, and it's important that the scale and nature of signage is appropriate to the role and character of its surrounds. So I think that's one of the main considerations in this particular application. In terms of the key issues that have been identified, the first one was landscape impact. So as you travel down the road, you can actually see out to Mount Lange at the distance and back to the township. The landscape that's probably most significantly impacted by the large billboard is the view out to Mount Lange. So the signage will sort of impede on that particular location. The same issue was raised at a VCAT hearing, I think a number of years ago, in terms of the impact. That particular sign is on a lower location further down at High Street and probably doesn't have the same sort of impact on landscape. The next item that was raised was visual clutter. Obviously, the more signs, the more buildings, etc., that we have on our streetscapes, that can add to the visual clutter of a particular area. Hence the strong policy around managing some of the signage. This sign also sort of encroaches into the setback. Normally you would have a setback of say 6 to 7 metres from industrial buildings, and the adjacent buildings are industrial or commercial type uses. This particular billboard sits about 2 to 3 metres back from the street, so it encroaches on that view line where you would normally see signage, see buildings along a streetscape. The other one is streetscape amenity, and that's probably the impact on the amenity of a street. And we've got the unique situation here where we have residential uses on one side and commercial uses on the other side. In some circumstances you'll have those sort of same uses on either side. We've heard, I suppose, in terms of the function of the road, whether it's a tourist road or whether it's a local road. I think it's a well-used road and it's used by residents, and so it does provide an image to the community about what the streetscape in that particular area, and it does have a particular character. So one of the other impact is the integrity of that particular streetscape. There was another couple of points, I suppose, that are worth noting, and the council doesn't have any control over the type of signage that goes on these particular. We allow the signage, but we don't control, whether it's a local sign or an internet, state promotion, etc. The planning scheme is not able to control those sorts of uses. The other thing worth mentioning is we did receive an objection to the proposal. So that is also outlined on the report, and it raises the issue of visual impact and the view from that particular site. It also raises the issue of the streetscape, I think, by an adjoining owner, so they're concerned about this additional sign further degrading the views of that particular street as well. So there is a recommendation associated with the proposal in 3 parts. If I can just summarise them, the first one is inconsistent with the surrounding streetscape and it's contrary to the local policy, is the first reason. The second reason is that the proposal would clutter and disorder, add clutter and disorder to the area, and it's contrary to local policy in that perspective as well. And the third one is that it would harm the sensitive vista of Mount Lang and Duran, which is so significant to Ararat. Obviously, signage like this can be incremental, and having a strong position on the introduction of this signage is important. Hence, the recommendation is for the refusal of the planning permit application. So I sort of commend councillors to take on that recommendation, or to consider that.
Councillor Braithwaite.
I see it is in a commercial zone.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's not unusual to have signage in commercial zones.
Business identification signage is an accepted form of signage that doesn't require a permit up to 8 square metres. What we have here is a major promotional signage, that hence the requirement. It doesn't relate to the use of the land or anything in those circumstances.
Any further questions, councillors, before I put the motion?
Someone better said move it. I'll move the
Okay.
motion.
Move councillor Beale with the recommendation.
Yeah.
And seconded councillor Armstrong. Any discussion?
I'd like to speak to it.
Mr. Beale.
I have no issue with what advertising will be on it. I mean, that's not in our purview. It's not within the planning scheme. Whether it's local or interstate is really irrelevant. It may not be irrelevant for the people that are hiring the space, so I'm sure the gentleman would do a much better job for a local than he would necessarily from a big multinational. But what the issue is for me is the proliferation of signs. You know what the one next to the SES Hall is like. You drive along there and suddenly you've got, well, what is it this week? It's Liberal Party, next week it's the Labor Party, then it's whatever. It just shocks you. The zoning is fine, commercial, but there are the residential people over the road. Now, I don't live in that street, but for me that would be an issue looking over at a purpose-built sign. It's one in another location I could have supported, but as you come down to that, there's the mountains. And at the present moment, when the bypass is in, it may be a different issue. You have a sign on the bypass, but at the present moment, and for some years to come, it will be, in my view, overboard.
Councillor Armstrong, if you wish to speak.
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Wood. Madam Mayor, sorry. My concern with the planning application is in relation to the blockage of the view of what is our iconic landmark across our townscape. I have no problem whatsoever with the commercial nature of advertising, but I think the display face of 18 metres wide and 43 metres, or 18 metres across the diagonal, and 43 across the diagonal to the west elevation is so far in excess of our typical commercial advertising limits for local business. And I think it just could be the tipping point, as outlined by Councillor Beales. That was the point I was going to make about it potentially being the impetus for a pattern across our streetscape, and I'm concerned that it could set a precedent, and I'd be reluctant for that to be the case. I think that there are probably some more suitable locations across our townscape for this kind of advertising. Not, as I said, not at all against advertising or billboards, but unfortunately I agree with the fact that it's going to be have an effective visual clutter across a very, very sensitive viewpoint on the skyline.
Councillor Braithwaite?
No, I agree entirely.
Any further speakers? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? It's carried. Brief and oral lease, Ararat Store District Field and Game Association.
This report, Madam Mayor, I'll introduce on behalf of Mr. Cole, who's not here tonight, deals with renewal of a lease from the council to the Ararat Store District Field and Game Association, who've been under a previous lease on this site for the past 20 odd years, and they're now seeking renewal of that lease. So there's a recommendation there. Recommending that a new lease be entered into for a term of 21 years, subject to similar conditions that prevailed over the past 20 years.
Councillors, is someone prepared to move your recommendation? Councillor Braithwaite and Councillor Beard. Councillor Braithwaite.
I think I seconded it. I think. Okay.
Either way.
No, I just think this is great that we're securing the a piece of land for a local organisation in the long term, and I support it 100%.
Can we do the discussion? Councillor Armstrong.
I just think it's significant to note that since the club has leased the land since 1998, there have been no incidents reported, so it's very unsound management and well made us.
We've done some great work in tree planting with these two conservative areas over those years, so it's great. I think the motion, all those in favour? Against? Carried. 3.5, quarterly performance report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll present this report on behalf of Mr. Cole. The quarterly performance report, of course, provides the Council with an overview of the previous quarter's financial performance. This report is up to the period ending 30 June 2018, which of course is the conclusion of the financial year. The report includes our income statement, comprehensive statement, and all of the reports that form part of our annual report, including the performance statement that goes into our annual report. So I'm going to take any questions, Madam Mayor, if there are any. Otherwise, I'll take the report as read.
Any questions, Councillor Armstrong?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've got a question regarding the section on page 32 as the numbers are printed regarding materials and services, and I appreciate that there's been a breakdown of the variance to the budget to the amount of 8.57 million. The variance being 1.797 million, but the detail as given doesn't fully account for that variance. So it's a pity that Mr. Cole isn't here to be able to answer that. My question regarding.
Yes, I might need to take that on notice and have those at my fingertips. But it'll be the full breakdown of the 1.7.
Thank you, I appreciate that very much.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
I just would like to see if we could have the governance costs associated with the Commission of Inquiry to be included in the quarterly reports.
Have you had to do the motion if those?
Yeah.
Costs
The
are
motion
included?
said the cost would be included. Yeah.
Okay. Including this report?
Included in the quarterly report, please.
Second? Councillor Beale. Councillor Pickman. You wish to say something?
No, I'm happy. I'm happy that it's...
Councillor Beale.
Yeah.
I'll put the motion, all those in favour? Against? Carried. 3.6, Council Policy Review.
This report, 3.6, deals with the periodic review of two council policies. The first being the policy dealing with support to councillors and the reimbursement of councillors' expenses. This is one that the council asked to be reviewed, and I might invite Ms. Walcott to take us through the report.
The first policy, the council support and reimbursement of councillors' expenses policy, was that was a one that was up for review, and we've actually added a few bits and pieces in there. It's the policy now combines information held in different sources and includes a reference to the Mayor of Car, which hasn't been on before. The policy also summarises all the levels of support provided for council in carrying out their duties and for claiming expenses. and the other one, the social media policy, it was added, just a little bit updated to ensure that councillors, employees and contractors are aware of the protocols for appropriate use of social media.
We have a mover and a seconder for recommendation on page 40. Councillor
Oh,
Ford.
move.
Second, Councillor Hull.
For me to move for social media policy, I think I'll leave that one. It's not very. But in relation to the other, I think it was very important because we got ourselves into a bit of trouble as a council because no one really knew what the status of the mayoral car was and allowances and the like. And it's clearly set out now that what that use is, what training is required of councillors. It's clearly set out that there will be an induction process for new councillors, which we should advertise before the next election so that candidates know that on a certain date there will be induction and they should make themselves available. It seems to, now if people ask, well, what are you entitled to, what training do you need, we can say, well, if you look at the document, there it is, there's no confusion anymore, so I'm very happy to have moved it.
Common sense. Anything further?
I would just say that I think that social media has become an ever-increasing part of our life from day to day, and I think it's very important to have a policy that covers that.
Scary stuff. Anything further, councillors? Before I put the motion, all those in favour? Against, carried. Section 4, information reports, council work plan, action plan. There is a recommendation from the councillors.
The work plan is tabled.
I'm happy to move it.
I'll second
Second, councillor Hull. Any discussion?
No.
If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against, carried. 4.2, building approvals. Councillors, we have a mover and a seconder.
I'll move them.
Councillor Hull and Councillor Armstrong.
I think the report is self-explanatory.
I think you're right. All those in favour? Against, carried. 4.3, planning matters approved under delegation. There is a recommendation there as well, councillors.
Move, Madam
Move councillor Hull, seconded. Councillor Armstrong.
Mayor. Also self-explanatory.
All those in favour? Against, carried. Section 5, committee annex reports. Councillors?
Those minutes are tabled. Various.
Councillor Petron's moving.
Yes.
They will be included in the agenda attachment. I have a seconder. Councillor Beale. Any discussion?
Yeah, I'd just like to, I've just noticed that on the Marina Recreation Reserve Committee that there was a meeting on the 30th of July, which I wasn't aware of. It was said on the minutes that their last meeting was the 22nd of August 2016 and that the meeting date's not provided, but they said they had a general meeting, an AGM last year, so just got to follow it up with them.
I think Madam Mayor, it may have slipped down it's probably slipped down from one of the other meetings. I was trying 30th of July, it rings a bell with me, but anyway.
There's no further discussion. I'll put the motion in.
Just before that.
Councillor Braithwaite. Sorry.
I think we added the council attendance record about 6 months ago, and there's things on here that show me not attending that I have attended. So I think we need to find a better way of recording that, because that shows almost nothing was attended.
In light of that, for example, the Lake Barlett Complex AGM, Councillor Deutsch and I both attended. But unless they send minutes, unless the staff, we tell the staff we attend, and then they can put it in rather than wait for the minutes, might be an easier way. Put it as a responsibility of the councillors to do it.
But as the report sits here, it looks like no one was attending in.
Yeah. Well, the one for Alexander Hall was only held last Thursday night, and that was the AGM in the ordinary meeting. They must have moved it because I normally get the minutes in the letterbox, so it keeps me well up to date, but it is hard to keep information that's not going too well.
And the Strip and Memorial Hall held their AGM last year, and I had asked for the minutes to be sent through the council and thought they had been this afternoon. But yeah, I think you're right, Councillor Braithwaite, it's not a reliable hall.
No further discussion, councillors? I shall put the motion to those in favour. That's carried. Advisory committees, councillors. 5.2.
I'd have the same comment, Madam Mayor, about attendance. I certainly attended the last audit committee meeting. So did you.
And the CEO Employment and Recruitment Advisory Committee
Yeah, we both.
meetings we've attended. And the art gallery meeting's been rescheduled for tomorrow, for instance.
Madam Mayor, just a question. Having to fill in that section, does that mean that a member of staff has to go through each one of the minutes and fill that in?
I'm not sure whether it's just it is, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. At present, that's what it is. But if we actually notify Jenny, for example, say, I attended that, can we put it? It'd be easier.
Yeah, I think the onus is on us to inform Jenny.
Yeah. To be helpful.
Yes.
Right. I should put the motion all those in favour. That's carried. Assembly of Councillors, 6.1. Recommendation, Councillor Hunt and Councillor George. Councillors?
No.
There was one in there that I would like to speak about, was the, on the 14th of August, I actually raised an issue of engaging more, a bit more with our community, and I think that that's something that we need to address. If you look back through this booklet, it says that one of our problems that we have is that we don't engage with our community, and that was why I was making the comment that it would be good if there was anything that was coming up that was good for us to attend as a councillor. It would be good to go, and as I commented that particular night, you don't have to go to everything, but just knowing that who's out there, what needs to be done, I think is important. I think that we need to form and we need to get that particular document so as it's a more balanced, the fact that we do care and we are trying to engage with our community, and I think that that spells it out very strongly that we're not doing that at the moment. There's no further comments. I shall put the motion on those in favour. That's carried. Councillor reports. Starting with Councillor Armstrong.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Along with you, I attended the Council of Development weekend on Saturday and Sunday, the 28th and 29th of July, and some of the things I took away from that included discussion around the shortcomings of the proposed reforms to the Local Government Act, and there was also a very useful information session run by Ruth McGowan regarding CEO recruitment and management, which was most timely for where this council was at. I also attended a seminar regarding the planning reform impact assessment, and I have a template which I'm able to share with councillors to assist us in being able to make a strategic assessment with concerns that may arise. That was run by one of the own contracted experts. And lastly, Craig Rickersell spoke. You would know him from the War on Waste. He provided gave a terrific address on the Sunday morning, and from that I took the message that councils, we really do have the collective power to unite and be proactive in regard to resource recovery, waste to energy, and together we can pressure the state government to allocate funding from the landfill levy, which is sitting with more than $500 million in the sustainability fund coffers. So it was a very powerful message, I think, for the councils who had representation at the weekend to bring that back and understand that this is an issue we shouldn't be trying to tackle on our own, but we should be working together. On Monday the 30th, I went along to the Bowls Club here in Ararat to attend a community engagement session that was run regarding the potential mineral exploration in the Stokely Arc, new exploration in Western Victoria. And then, of course, in the week of our reopening of the Arts Precinct, we councillors had a great opportunity to tour the Town Hall and Art Gallery just before it was opened. And I was fortunate to be able to attend the launch of the Kylie exhibition on the Friday evening, which was really well received, incredibly well received. And there was a particular Kylie fan who I think has attended nearly every possible event that he could in his lifetime. He has an amazing collection of Kylie memorabilia, and he's just a walking expert on Kylie. That was magnificent. And it just fits so well in our gallery. It certainly does the exhibition justice. The Ursula Carlson show at the Town Hall on Saturday night was well attended. And it's quite lovely actually. I was able to bookend that with attendance, nothing to do with council, but I did attend the Marion College performance of Bonnie and Clyde on Friday evening, which was just fabulous and so exciting to see a community group come and share the space and make the most of that facility. The performers were outstanding, the support crew were amazing, so great work by Marion College there. We had the ARBA AGM, the Ararat Regional Business Association AGM at Shallowbar Golf Club on Wednesday the 8th of August, highlighting, I think, the very real concern that we have across our business community regarding representation and engagement with our, not just with here where we are sitting here today, but looking into the future with the bypass. And it's very encouraging to look through the quarterly report and note the reserves that have been put aside, particularly in the area of business and economic development, to be able to address those concerns. We certainly don't have a head in the sand on that subject. Then on Thursday, just gone, along with councillors Allwood and Beals, I attended the MAB Rural and Regional Forum down in Melbourne, and an issue that was well, there were a number of quite concerning issues highlighted, and I'm sure that Councillor Beals and Councillor Allwood will expand on them. But just again, in relation to the quarterly report and reserves, regarding our defined benefits fund, we must be absolutely certain that we have enough tucked away to be able to meet our future superannuation entitlements, obligations on behalf of our employee entitlements. And then lastly, on Friday, I attended the Western Highway Action Committee meeting in Melton, and the priorities were being worked over again by the 11 councils that participated in that committee, and there was also discussion around representation being made regarding the application for the protection of the specified area, the Gibron country where the protesters are currently located. Of course, that's a very current issue, and it's something that we're all keeping our ear to the ground on very, very closely. So hopefully we can have a negotiated result come about sooner rather than later. So that's my report. Thank you.
And Councillor George.
Nothing to report.
Councillor Beckman.
Yes, like Councillor Armstrong, I attended a lot of the events at the opening of our new town hall, which was terrific. Just it was great to see our Ararat City Band play, and the things with the fast track competition. That was really good, seeing all the kids. Ursula Carlson was very, very funny, so I really enjoyed that. And the Ararat comedy and musical. They were really good. I was lucky enough, or lucky or unlucky, but Mayor Allgood had to go, but she let me have half of the day on Sunday emceeing some of the events, so that was really good. Nervous, but it was a really good day, so I really enjoyed it. So thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. Councillor Braithwaite. Councillor Beale.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll give you the listing if you like. I've attended the Wallora Memorial Hall meeting, and I'm pleased to see that their towards and disability access issues are going out to tender. Not necessarily happy when I get the tender document back, because that's always a shock. I chaired the Municipal Emergency Planning Committee. I attended the ABRA meeting for part of it. I also attended the Regional Rural Forum, and in relation to some of the things that Councillor Armstrong said and you, Mo, there was a lot of conversation in relation to insurance, MAV insurance. The Auditor General wants us the MAV to go out and tender every 2 years. The MAV is aligned with the Tasmanian councils and all Australian councils and get a very good deal from London. There's only one other insurer in the business, and there's only 2 councils that aren't with this. To tender it out every year, it demolishes the credibility that insurance companies rely on the good and the bad, so it smooths their issues out. So that's been fought quite vigorously. Apparently the government is not particularly impressed with the idea. There was discussion in relation to the President's position. If people haven't understood it, the President of the MAV is a councillor from the city of Whittlesea, and she's elected for a period. The Whittlesea Council have decided that they're not going to pay their financial commitment to the MAV, and as such, as soon as that occurs, she's out. Can't be president of an organisation that her group belongs to. And there was a lot of discussion in relation to waste management. That could be 6 or 7 weeks discussion here. Councillor Holloway and the Mayor were here today with staff of the Victorian Grants Commission. It's probably the best presentation and easiest to understand in all my years of sitting there listening to them, and it does make fascinating reading, and maybe we should give ourselves a separate briefing. I've realised there's a weakness in our agenda system that we can't raise issues during this stage, so I won't, but I think the issues raised by Mr Brown, which I don't necessarily agree with, should be addressed as an issue in the council, because there were quite a few things that he said that I know are factually incorrect, and we need to have a full discussion on that. And finally, I actually found your comment before that we should get out into the community, not patronising or offensive. There hasn't been a day in the last 2 weeks that I haven't been with some community group or some community event that I don't report. I don't report that I'm doing a barbecue for 500 kids at Marion College for a community group I belong to. All of the councils are out there. We don't have to be farmed around or herded around by the council officers.
Councillor Beale, I think you're taking that out of context, if you don't mind. Councillor Hull.
Madam Mayor, I've attended quite a few things that other councillors have, and as the last in the line, I probably have less to say. I too attended the community engagement about mineral exploration in Western Victoria. That was led by government representatives, which I didn't really understand when I went to it. I thought it was probably the mineral people themselves. I was most impressed because I had quite an intense conversation with some of the people there who were there to answer questions. And the level of support and for the farmers who are potentially the landowners who will have exploration, I was very pleasantly surprised that they really do care and have adopted guidelines and policies which doesn't hinder the exploration, but also makes sure that the farmers or the landowners are well looked after as well. So it was very informative. I happened to be speaking to a government geologist, and I learned an awful lot, and I could have sat down and talked to him for a long time. I went to the celebration of the completion of the Ararat precinct development. which was opened by Minister Jayla Pulford. That is just a wonderful achievement for this community. That regional complex, the art gallery, the Performing Arts Centre, I think the council, the community and the governments who have provided funding should be congratulated. I think it's something that we can truly be proud of. I also went to the launch of the Kylie exhibition, blown away. She's a very tiny dynamo. Couldn't believe that she could fit into those costumes. And I can report that I had interstate visitors in the last week, and I told them to go, and they came away incredibly impressed. So it really is. We have to congratulate the staff that organised that exhibition, and I think it's the beginnings of a very good period for Ararat with the gallery and what it does. The Fast Track Talent Show, I just couldn't believe the talent that we have in our community. These young performers, dancers, singers, musicians.
13-year-olds.
Yeah. For those who don't know, just about everybody there was 13. And to the point where one of the performers said, when she was asked how old she was, she said 13, but she was actually 12. She just wanted to get a rise out of the MC. We do have a councillor in our neighbouring municipality, and he was an extremely proud grandparent because his granddaughter was picked up by the Fast Track Talent Show and they're going to further her career. And I was blown away. All of the young people were fabulous, but she was just amazing. So look forward to seeing in the future a star in those as a composer and performer who comes from our region. I went to the Arbor AGM, and they were a committed group. I think that our business community needs to support their organisation, because with the bypass of the highway in the future, it is very important for them to speak with a unified voice, to keep themselves informed and make plans. So I wish them well and hope that they're able to garner that support. This morning I went to the Arbor, I've got the wrong title here. This morning I went to the East Grampians Health Services Resident Support Group AGM, with the Mayor was also there, and that organisation was a clear demonstration of the level of work that our volunteers do. They do a fabulous job, and they presented a talent exercise book which has recorded their activities for the last 30 years. And you know, that sort of history and that sort of commitment is a credit to the people of our community. And I also went to the Grants Commission this afternoon, and I endorse Councillor Beals. It has been the best one that I have ever attended. The level of explanation probably simplified it a bit for us ignorant councillors, but it was excellent, and it really explained the efforts that they make to ensure that small rural councils get as much of the pie as can be supported. And so it was very well worthwhile. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hahn. On Wednesday the 18th, Acting CEO and I were present at the Murray Basin Rail Project Passenger Improvement Briefing. It was interesting that I think everybody that was there was actually acting in the role, because most of the actual people from that area had actually gone to Melbourne to work on the tunnel project, so they were looking for workers to fill those positions. I went to Wallora to the community engagement session, chaired the senior sits. Was present on the 20th of July when Dan Turner was kind enough to give us some money for the War Vacuum, which was fantastic. Had a meeting with the Suncar Health Proprietary Limited regarding the drug site. I attended the College Diploma Nursing Graduation of East Grampians Health Service. Very strange. The last time I sat in that room, it was sitting down at the Oval as a football meeting room, and all of a sudden it's a classroom, and the way that you can actually place it where it looks as though it's always been, which is just amazing. Saturday the 21st, I went to the Filipino community meeting at Oval, got caught up in the auction action, inducted a few people that had actually been nominated to that group. It was really interesting in that all 4 positions that were filled, they were all engineers down at AME, so that was a really good fun night. The reforming of the Ararat show, there were 19 attendees at that meeting on the 24th of July. Has already been mentioned, I was went to Torquay. Tuesday the 31st, we had a tour of the Arts Precinct. I never in my wildest dreams imagined that I would be part of the redevelopment of the arts of the town hall, the way it is now. Absolute dream, the whole thing. And the people that walked in the front door that were blown away was just absolutely fantastic to see them and how pleased that they were. The Art Toy Library, present at that, I think Councillor Fahal was there, was at the Fast Track Talent Show. I'd like to thank Councillor Petman for filling in for me, but we had a lovely photo taken with the Micmacs. For those who don't know, the Micmacs are from Lake By. They're a children's group, very popular. We wanted them for the show and they're taking off for New South Wales and beyond. So they're great and they were telling their whole story, which was terrific. The reason I left early was that I needed to go and watch the football match, which was a fundraiser for the men's health, which was really interesting to see that age group. And I won't mention that my son was there, running around and playing football, and all the sons standing on the sidelines and telling their dads what to do. Sort of a role reversal there. On Monday the 6th of August, I was invited to go to Hamilton to the Pastoral and Agricultural Society by the Mayor of Hamilton. I attended the Business Association and we had a meeting with Staveley Wines at the Ararat. Staveley Wines, that's right. I went to the Ararat Community College production as well. On Saturday the 11th of August, there was an endurance ride at the Ararat trotting track. Couldn't believe the amount of horses and people that were there. It was then soon to go to the basketball training at the Ararat Fitness Centre, and that's something that you don't see a lot of, being that it is a weekend where, because we're so central, all of the basketball teams actually come here, fill out accommodation, can't get anything to eat in any of the takeaways, just amazing. Trash and Treasure on Sunday the 12th. And then I went to the entrusting the stewardship of the Marion to the Good Dare Ministries at the Catholic Church. That was one of the barbecues that Councillor Beale mentioned before. We had the Remuneration Advisory Committee meeting. Went to the MAB Rural Regional Forum with Councillor Beale and Councillor Armstrong. Went to the Vietnam Vets Day on Saturday. That is something that always shakes me up for my age group. We lost 521 Australians, and the address that was given on that day was something that I took home, and I thought the words were, "What did we achieve?" And I came home and I thought, I don't know that we did achieve a lot. And it was it was a very solemn message, I guess, that I brought home, and I thought, that's what happened. The Ararat Junior Football Grand Final, which I noticed Councillor Armstrong was there. What else have I done? East Grampians Health has already been reported on the Grants Commission, so pretty busy month, but very enjoyable one. And thank you everyone for getting out there and engaging with the community, because I think that's really, really important to actually do that. And I'm ready to make this announcement now, am I? Okay. It's my pleasure to announce that the Ararat Rural City is pleased to announce the appointment of Mr Tim Harrison as the new Chief Executive Officer from October the 2nd. And I'm going to read the press release, is that all right?
We don't have to read it all because it will be sent out immediately.
Okay.
But if you wish to.
Well, he's got extensive experience in senior management and a good knowledge of our region. Tim will be able to lead the council in meeting the challenges and opportunities of the future. Dr Harrison comes to the CEO role at the Ararat Rural City after a diverse career. His previous positions have included senior roles in local government in Victoria, he's been to Queensland, and we're looking very much forward to actually having him on board with us. Tim holds a qualification in engineering, a Master of Business Administration and a doctorate where he explored relationships between social policy and community engagement. My words. He's the author of a government-funded reports on regional social service delivery and regional population, and he's established the Regional Incubator for Social and Economic Research and remains passionate about working with communities throughout rural and regional Victoria. And Dr Harrison said, I'm honoured to have been appointed to the CEO role of the Ararat Rural City Council. I'm very excited to be working with the council and the council staff to deliver important outcomes for our community. And I think that we're going to be very happy with that. He's very keen to come. Very enthused, I believe.
Absolutely.
Very enthused. So I think that we've made an excellent choice. Councillor, so congratulations and look forward to that. Right. We don't councillors' reports. Somebody like to move that the councillors' reports be received.
So moved.
I was looking at Councillor Deutsch and he put his hand up and Councillor Hull, I heard her voice, so we'll do that. Okay. In Councillor Deutsch was first, I was looking there when Councillor Hull spoke, so that's the fairness, okay. I put the motion. Everyone's in favour? That's carried. And the notice of motion, Councillor.
I'd like to withdraw my notice of motion.
Would like to withdraw it. We'll have that recorded in the minutes, please. Urgent business. Oh, it's exciting. It really is. I'll ask, hi all, just recapping our discussion this afternoon. I've only just found out about this and confirming that Sunrise will be broadcasting the weather from Ararat on Tuesday the 28th of August between 5:30 and 8:30am. Ararat is a location chosen by Sunrise as part of a road trip that they are undertaking around Australia from A to Z. So this is a great opportunity to highlight Ararat and further promote what we have to offer, but also making sure there will be lots of excitement and fun around the visit. The crew are hoping to get the community involved to come out and support the visit, plus as a celebration of the ANZ trip to assist in informing a giant human aid. Oh, that's going to be hard. So we are in the process of contacting schools, community and sporting groups to assist in providing assistance and to be part of a national TV show. We will also be offering a free bacon and egg breakfast on the morning to entice people braving the cold. It could be around 4 live crosses, with each cross promoting something different.
Still trying to firm out what the different highlights will be. So it's a fluid environment at the moment that we only just basically started working on this afternoon, and we're looking forward to engaging with the people that we've come up with some ideas to see if they can be a part of it. But the idea was for the council awards, you are more than welcome to come down and celebrate our fantastic municipality of Ararat, and will be national exposure on Sunday.
The other ideas are the Coley exhibition, the Ararat 800 Circus Jasmine, the skate park could be things. Might have Henry to play cricket. I'm sure you've got to come to get the bat and ball back out. So there's lots of things happening. So
make sure you book their accommodation. That might be more difficult.
So make sure you've got that in your diaries, council, the 28th of August, 5:30. We'll tell you where.
Well, yes, so the fluid environment was we're anticipating it will be in the town hall forecourt, and there may be some other location changes. But as I just want to reiterate that what you have read out is preliminary planning. It depends on the availability of various people in the community, and it's more about just getting the message out there that we need a great representative of our community down there to celebrate Ararat.
And local produce. would be great.
So,
bacon and eggs.
so
You've got no excuse. 5:30 in the morning, you can have breakfast before you leave, David.
I don't have bacon.
So thanks very much to the staff, and we've got Julie Kilpatrick, Timmy Doodle, Matt, Angela, Robin, Jacqueline, and Aaron White to thank for all that planning. Have I covered it well? So well done, everyone. So that was all your business.
Yes.
Okay. So that one has been accepted. Would someone move that urgent business be accepted? Oh. Yes, you really got hit, Angela. Second. Second.
I think Peter, sure Peter, I saw his
I tried to get her that.
Those in favour? That's carried. And we close the meeting to the public, and there's a recommendation there that the meeting be closed to members of the public to discuss the items listed in the confidential agenda. Councillor Beale, seconded. Councillor Armstrong. All those in favour?